Let me share my screen with you. So we're finishing up. If you remember the last card we looked at when we talked about the preterite, it refers to an implied action during a particular period amount of time, right? So, and sometimes it could be implied. That is, it's not written or said directly, but the conversation gives you the idea that the action began in a particular time in the past. It lasted for a particular time in the past, but it's finished. The idea about the preterite is that it's the past, that it's finished, that it no longer is relevant as far as an action in the present. Two good examples would be the expression tener que. Tener que means have to. Tengo que hablar con mi papá, o tengo que escribir una carta. I have to do something. Now, look at the difference. Tuve que, teníamos que. Okay, so in one, the tuve que, now that's the verb tener, which means to have. In the preterite, it's yo tuve, tú tuviste, él, ella, usted tuvo, nosotros tuvimos. This is a very irregular verb. And ellos, ellas, ustedes tuvieron. Okay, that's the verb tener in the preterito, in the preterite. So if I say I had to do something, okay? If I use the preterite, I had to do something. Not only did I have to do something, I did it. Tuve que or tuviste que llamar a tu mamá. You had to call your mother. And you called your mother. You not only talk about the fact that you have to do it, by using the preterite, you're telling me that you had to do it and you did it. You know how they talk about reading in between the lines? Well, that's reading in between the lines, right? That's different than saying, tenía que hablar con mi mamá, right? Okay, you had to call your mother, but did you call your mother? I know you had to do it, but did you do it? That's the imperfect saying, telling me what you had to do, the action that you had to do. It is not saying whether you actually did it or not in the imperfect. But in the preterito, in the preterite, it's not only telling me what you had to do. The most important part is, and you did it. So once again, we're talking about the preterite, preterito meaning past. It's over. You had to do something and you did it. When in English, you don't do that. Like you'll say, I had to call my mother. And then I'll say, what, did you call her? Or you'll say, I had to call my mother, so I called her last night. But somewhere in the sentence, you let me know that either you did it or you didn't. For example, you might say, oh yeah, I had to call my mother, but I didn't call her. But I didn't call her, okay? So you had to do this particular action, but you didn't do it. That would be the imperfect. Tenía que llamar a mi, tenía que llamar a mi mamá. But you didn't do it. Versus the other action, tuve que llamar a mi mamá. I had to call my mother, and because you used the preterito, you're telling me, and I called her. That's why learning a language is much more than just substituting words. You have to think a different way. And a lot of, no, many times, maybe all the time, the tense that you use let a person know more information than is actually said. Okay. The last card that we're going to look at in the Preterito is used to indicate the beginning of an action. Mi sobrina escribió a los 5 años. My niece began writing at 5 years of age. Well, your niece is no longer 5 years old. So that's different than mi sobrina. Oh, I have an example here. Hablé y hablaba. Okay, so let's just look at it one more time. Mi sobrina escribió a los 5 años, right? So you're telling me that when your niece began to write, she began writing when she was 5 years old. Now, here's an example of using the pretérito, hablé, and the imperfect hablaba. And what's the difference? A los 5 años. Okay, so hablé, hablaba a los 5 años. So if you say hablé a los 5 años, at 5 years old, yeah, hablé a los 5 años. You're saying, I began to talk at 5 years old. Please excuse the noise. There's a truck passing by. This is during the pandemic. I'm not able to screen out as much noise as I would like to. Thank you. So, hablé a los 5 años means I began to talk at 5 years old. I began to talk. So when I turned 5, I began to talk. Hablé, hablé, hablaste, habló, hablamos, hablaron. That's the pretérito. Versus using the imperfect, that's the next tense we're going to learn. Hablaba a los 5 años means by the time I turned 5 years old, I was talking. Now that difference is subtle, but there's a difference. There's a difference in English in saying I began to talk at 5 years old versus by the time I was 5 years old, I was talking. I don't know exactly when you began to talk. You might have started talking at 5. You might have started talking at 4. You might have begun to talk at 3. But by the time you turned 5, you were talking. Versus the other one, you turned 5, you began to talk. That's talk. Okay. And that's understanding a language. When you're able to understand those subtleties, those nuances, that's really when you begin to get your teeth into a language, understanding the subtleties. And a lot of times you can't translate this. And if you do, you have to add words and add ideas because it's reading in between the lines. So once again, before I finish with the pretérito, the preterite, the word pretérito in Spanish means past. So it no matter what are the other subtleties, the difference is that it's clear that it's an action that began in the past and ended in the past. There is no thought that the action continues. So the two expressions that I love to use as an example is expression and word is the verb querer, which means, depending on the context, to want, but I'm using it as to love, and the expression have to, tener que. In the preterite, even though in English we would translate it more or less the same, or we would have to use extra words. Where in Spanish, if you use the preterito, it means one thing, the action began in past. So tuvo, let me see, tuve que llamar a mi hermano. I don't even have to say anoche. If I want to say anoche, last night I can. I had to call my brother last night, and I called my brother last night. Versus tenía que llamar a mi hermano anoche means I had to call my brother last night, but I'm not telling you whether I actually did it or not. Te quise means, one time I thought you were the cat's meow. What is the cat's pajamas or the cat's meow? I thought you were the best. I really loved you. But it's over. I don't love you anymore. Versus te quería means I loved you in the past, but I'm not saying that I still don't love you. So that's the pretérito or the preterite in Spanish. You can always use the cards in order to read the different meanings of the uses of the preterite in the past. That's why I don't just talk, and I try to put myself to the side and let the cards play I don't talk, only talk. I want the cards to play a role too in my videos. Corrala Ficklin McLean, welcome, WYLCOME.com. Thank you for visiting my videos, for visiting my platform and watching my video. I hope the cards are of help. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to say thank you very much. Thank you very much, because I said I was going to say it. So thank you very much. And the next set of cards we're going to be dealing with, because I've already talked about it, is the imperfect. So thank you. Have a good day.